Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Pink Umbrella. I am doing a video I've never done before. I'm gonna show you how I set up my Elgato Facecam with my lighting. A lot of content in this video is also going to talk about skin tones and how that plays with the lighting as well. So I hope this video is useful to some of you guys. Also, another thing, this video is sponsored. All the equipment almost that I'm using in terms of like the lighting was provided by Elgato, so thank you so much. Let's get started. In addition, this video is going to explain to you how to set up your Elgato lights and your Elgato webcam. I have a Facecam Pro and I also have a key light over here and a mini key light. You need a few software to make sure that you can use these equipment properly. One of the things is you need to install the control center and you also need to install the camera up. The control center will allow you to set up your lights without needing a controller. So you're going to be able to set up the temperature and also set up the intensity of the light. The other thing that you absolutely need is a camera hub. I personally recommend that you use the camera hub to set up your webcam versus setting up your webcam in OBS directly. So that your settings are saved in the webcam, because that is one of the features that's really cool with the Facecam Pro and probably the other webcams as well, is that you can save the features directly in the webcam. That means even if I were to unplug my webcam from my PC, I would not lose my feature and I can grab my webcam and use it with a different device. I'm gonna show you what the control center looks like. So here's the control center. It's very small. It's literally just this window. And you can have, as you can see, I only have two Elgato lights set up. You have a line for the warmth of the light. And you also have a line for the intensity. So this is almost no light at all. And this is very, very strong light, which makes me look blown out, but it's okay. So let's bring it back to what it was before, which I don't remember by heart. So I just kind of go with like what looks good, to be honest. Another thing that I want to mention is that this is a video of what works best for me. You don't have to do that exactly for your setup. It can be very helpful to use guides and to at least have like a basis in terms of understanding what you're changing and understanding what you're doing. But overall, if something doesn't look good to you, it doesn't look good to you. And if it looks good to you, it looks good to you. Another tip that can help you is finding a streamer, a YouTube video, a YouTuber that has a lighting that you like. And in my case, that relied also on that creator having a skin tone closer to mine, if that makes sense. The lighting, depending on what your skin tone is like, will react differently. But I do want to mention something about the Elgato Facecam Pro. I don't know if the other Facecams do the same thing, but what I've noticed for mine is that there are a few features in OBS that will change how your webcam looks like. So right now, if you double click on your webcam in OBS, but there's something that I noticed about the color range. The color, if I put default, the contrast is higher. For the finishing look that I'm looking for, I personally prefer when I put full instead of default. And now we're back to full. That's just my personal preference. I don't think one is better than the other. I do feel like if you go with full and the contrast is a bit lower, in your camera hub software, you can increase the contrast and kind of achieve, what we had previously. And I feel like that's easier than to do it the other way around. Another thing to be noted, in your camera hub, the webcam looks slightly different versus in OBS. Since I mostly use this webcam in OBS for my streams and my video recordings, I use the OBS result as what I'm going for. So I gauge how it looks in OBS to determine what I should change in the camera hub. Now that we got this out of the way, let's get started. So let's say you got your webcam out of the box, you're starting from scratch, you're starting from zero. What I recommend when you're setting up your webcam and your lighting for the first time, start in pitch darkness. You don't want the natural light of the day to influence the results. Daytime lighting is much more forgiving versus nighttime, because nighttime you need enough light to make sure that we can see you properly, we can see your nice face properly. I'm gonna close the blinds. I'm gonna turn off all the lights that I have in the room. Already huge difference. It's still the daytime, but you might even think that I'm recording this at night, right? Because it's so dark. There's no light behind me right now. I just have my key lights in front of me. So we're also gonna turn those off. So I go into over here, I open my control center and I click this button to turn off everything. For the purposes of the exercise, I'm also going to reset my Facecam Pro to the default settings. This is factory reset. You can play with different settings. There's a lot of settings, so this video is not initially going to focus on the software itself, but please take some time to play with these settings. Like, some of these settings are really fun. You can pretend to have a green screen, you can blur out your background. There's a ton of things. You can upload your own image and have it as a background. If you wanted me to do like a full-blown showcase of what the software looks like, I will gladly do it. First thing, turn on your lights. Put them to a level that is comfortable for you and also where you feel like you like the warmth. Something that can be helpful is using a mirror. Do you feel like the lighting makes you look good? Do you feel like it's faithful to what your actual skin tone is? So I think I look really good in the mirror. So that is good enough for me, and the lights are not too bright for my eyes. Be mindful when you watch other people's videos. They might turn the lights towards the wall, which is absolutely fair because the lights are very bright. If you have a deeper skin tone, you might need a bit more light because your skin tone absorbs part of that light. So be mindful of that. Second step is to work on the exposure. That is the most important, and that's gonna prepare like the baseline for what we're working with. Nothing wrong with the automatic one. It's not my preference. I think in the automatic one, I look overexposed. You can play with the compensation to, you know, make it seem not as strong. But I personally prefer manually changing my settings. That is my personal preference. You can look at both and see which one you like better. So we're gonna remove automatic. Rule of thumb, shutter speed is, depending on what your resolution is, it's 1080 60. So it's either the shutter speed needs to be from 60 to 120. So it's once up to twice what your frame per second is over here. So we could go in that direction, and we should remain in that overall like range. Next thing, let's set it up to 120 and see what happens. ISO is how much light your camera captures. So the lower your ISO, the darker it's going to be. The higher your ISO, the more overexposed you're going to be, because the webcam is capturing all the light essentially. And also a high ISO will make your image grainy. So you don't want your ISO to be high. The general rule of thumb is for your ISO to be as low as possible. If I wanted my ISO to be at 100, let me go back into my control center for my lights. I would have to make my lights much brighter to keep my ISO so low. This brightness hurts my eyes. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that personally. So let me bring them back to what they were before, something kind of like that. So because of that, I don't want to change my lights. And I saw on my mirror that this looks pretty good. So I think I'm able to achieve something like that. I'm going to increase my eyes. This looks pretty good. And as we can see, the image also brightens when you lower your shutter speed. When you increase your shutter speed, sorry. I feel like this looks pretty good. I'm not talking about the color right here. I'm not talking about my skin tone color. We're just talking about, am I bright enough and can people see me properly? I like this a lot. I'm gonna lock it in and I'm gonna save. Now it's time to add the garnish. And at this stage, when you're adding the garnish, that's when I would turn on your neon lights so that we can see all of the different garnish that you have. I have a pink umbrella that my friend Pam Pam gave to me. Already that makes a little bit of difference because I look a bit more pinkish, so that is important. So let's go back in my camera app. I'm just gonna change the focus to automatic. That's my personal preference. If you're not too comfortable with it, to be honest, I would not play with it. I would set it to automatic, and at times if you need to refocus, you can click on this button. We're gonna change our white balance. That makes a huge difference. Typically, when I play with these things, I try to achieve my actual natural skin tone and skin complexion. So I like to have a mirror. I'm gonna remove automatic. You see how already I'm a bit closer. Well, you don't want my skin tone looks like, but I can tell that I'm a bit closer to what I actually look like in real life. So personally, I do like a high temperature, but you see how when you go so high, let's say you like makeup and things like that, you lose all the other colors. So I would tell you to be mindful, but typically that's the type of feature that I would say go with something that you think looks good. Then my tint, I do like a pinkish tint, something like that. That looks pretty good to me. I also feel like if you have a cooler skin tone, a cooler undertone, then going on the temperature that's really high, that's really warm, may not look as good on you. Next thing, the picture, and that's gonna be like kind of like our final thing. This is also based on preferences. I do like to look warm, and I like something that really looks like my skin tone. My skin tone looks brown, like a very like rich brown right now. So I do like to increase the saturation. Not too much, because obviously at some point you start looking orange, especially depending on what your undertone is. I have a neutral warm undertone, so it is relevant in this case to be mindful of that. I like this finish. For the contrast, I do like to go with like a lower contrast. This is a bit too low to me, but this is too high, so I like to go with like something over here. I just think it looks good. Focus, I didn't change it. And then obviously you can change the frames, which is really neat. To save a frame, for example, this is going to be like my just chatting level. This looks pretty good. And then you hold down click. And then this one, I don't want it to be that close either. Maybe 150 or so. Try to think of like in what situations you would be using these things, if that makes sense. And then I hold down, left click, hold, so that it saves. And then the final one, which is very close, I'm gonna put it at like 200. And what's really cool is that you're not losing any quality on your recording. Like, this looks very good still. There you go. I'm gonna reopen my blinds and show you what it looks like. There are a few things as well that I can add to like add garnish. It could be like adding a light maybe above my head, so that's gonna be an investment for another day. And also having a light behind you. I do have a light and I'm gonna turn it on. It's gonna make a slight difference, but the light is not super strong, so that does make a slight difference. That is the difference super big? Not really, but it does make a little bit of difference. It makes the video a bit more balanced without taking the focus away from me. Sometimes if you feel like you are not the focus of your video, that means the lights behind you are brighter than the lights that are on you. I think I look very good, but I think it could look a little bit darker. I could go in my exposure, just like I showed you earlier. I could go in my exposure and I could maybe like increase my shutter speed. You see, so already it makes a difference. Or keep the shutter speed as is and reduce my ISO, just because I feel like it's letting in a bit too much light. Plus, I added some lights in my background, so now I'm just adding finishing touches, like to get really like a good like balanced final result. And I think this looks very good. What do you think? What do you think? Let me save this. There is no point in putting lights that are too bright for your eyes. If even with like the highest brightness on your lights and you feel uncomfortable, you're not able to get a lighting that looks nice and that looks balanced, that probably means that your lights are not bright enough. Okay, that is the general rule of thumb that we'll say. I'm gonna open my blinds just so that we can see what it looks like in daytime. And remember how I said that like daylight light is more forgiving? So I can play with my blinds because now I feel like the light from outside is kind of stealing the show, which is why I said that in the daytime it's more forgiving and you can adjust things a bit more easier. So I will lower the blinds a little bit. The outside light was making me feel overexposed, so I lowered the blind to like 50%, let's say, and now I feel like I am the center of the video, and I think this looks very, very good. In order, turn off everything. Start with your lighting. Is the lighting bright enough? Is it warm? How do I look when I open a mirror? How do I look like? Do I feel like this is representative of me in the mirror? That indicates to me that the warmth of the light is what I'm looking for and the brightness is what I'm looking for. So based on that, you go in your camera hub, you adjust your exposure. But at the end of the day, yes, there are different like rules of thumb and different things like that. If the image looks good to you, it looks good. I don't think you always have to be like, oh, I need to follow the exact rules. I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any more questions, please let me know. I would love to make another video on these things. Also, as a friendly reminder, I'm an Elgato ambassador. Consider using my affiliate link in the description box if you were thinking of purchasing Elgato products. I will see you next time. Bye.